Judges Chapter 1. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites consulted Yahweh, "Who among us shall be the first to fight against the Canaanites?" Yahweh answered, "The tribe of Judah shall go up first, and I will give the land into their hands." So the people of Judah said to their brothers from the tribe of Simeon, "Help us conquer the part of the land that is allotted to us, and then we will conquer with you the region that is yours." So they joined forces for the war. When the tribe of Judah attacked the Canaanites and the Perizzites, Yahweh gave them into their hands. In Bezek, they defeated 10,000 men. In Bezek, they encountered the lord of Bezek and fought against him. The lord of Bezek fled, but they pursued him. They captured him and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. The lord of Bezek then said, 70 kings whose thumbs and big toes I cut off used to pick scraps under my table. Now God has done to me according to what I have done." They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The tribe of Judah attacked the city of Jerusalem, and after killing its inhabitants, they burned the city. Afterwards, they went down from Jerusalem to attack the Canaanites who lived in the mountains, in the Negev, and in the plains. They also attacked the Canaanites who were in Hebron. Hebron was also called Kiriath Arba at that time, and they defeated Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there, they marched against the inhabitants of Debir, a city which was also called Kiriath Sefer. Then Caleb made this promise, "To the one who takes Kiriath Sefer, I will give my daughter Achsah as wife." It was Othniel who took the city. He was the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, and Caleb gave him Achsah, his daughter, as wife. When Achsah came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. She alighted from her ass, and Caleb asked her, "What do you want?" She answered, "What a gift this Negev wilderness is! Give me also springs of water." And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. The descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, also went up with the people of Judah from the city of Palms to that part of the desert of Judah on the boundary of the Negev near Arad, and they settled there with them. Those from Judah and their brothers from the tribe of Simeon attacked the Canaanites who lived in Sephath, and they sacrificed Sephath in honor of Yahweh. For this reason, the city was named Anathema. Judah seized Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron with their respective territories. Although they conquered the mountainous regions with the help of Yahweh, they could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain because they fought with iron chariots. Following the orders of Moses, they gave the city of Hebron to Caleb, who had cast out the 3 sons of Anak from there. But the tribe of Benjamin did not succeed in expelling the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. The Jebusites have stayed in Jerusalem until this day. The people of Joseph went up against Bethel with the help of Yahweh. They sent men out to spy in Bethel, formerly called Luz, and they met a man coming out of the city. They said to him, "Tell us how we can enter the city." and we will not kill you." He showed them the way. Then they entered and put the city to the sword, but set the man free, together with his whole family. The man went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city, which he named Luz, which is its name to this day. However, the tribe of Manasseh did not drive out the people of Beth Shean and Tanakh, or the inhabitants of Dor, Ibleam, and Megiddo. The Canaanites persisted in dwelling in these cities and in the towns that depended on them, and they kept their lands. But when the Israelites grew stronger, they exacted taxes from the Canaanites who stayed in their place. Neither did the tribe of Ephraim expel the Canaanites who lived in Geser, nor did the tribe of Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron and Nahalol. These Canaanites lived among them, but had to pay taxes to them. Those of Asher did not expel the people of Akko, Sidon, Ahlab, Aksib, Helban, Afik, or Rekob. The tribe of Asher had to live in the midst of the Canaanites who occupied their territory, for they could not drive them out from the region. The same happened with the tribe of Naphtali that failed to drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath. They had to dwell in the midst of the Canaanites who lived in that region. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath paid taxes to this tribe. The Amorites did not allow the descendants of Dan to come down to the plain, so the latter had to live in the mountains. The Amorites also remained in Har-Heres, Aijalon, and Shalbim, but when the tribe of Joseph grew stronger, they forced the Amorites to pay taxes. The territory of the Amorites extended from the slope of Akrabim to Selah and upward. Judges chapter 2. The angel of Yahweh went up from Gilgal to Bochim, where the Israelites were gathered, and he said to them, "I made you go up from Egypt and brought you to the land I had promised your ancestors. I said to them, Never will I break my covenant with you, but you shall not make any covenant with the Canaanites, and shall destroy their altars. But you have not obeyed my command. Why did you not obey me? Now I will not drive out these nations before you. They shall be your oppressors, and their gods shall be a trap for you." After the angel of Yahweh had spoken, all the Israelites began to weep and cry. For this reason, they named that place Bochim, which means those who weep, and they offered sacrifices to Yahweh. When Joshua dismissed the Israelites, each one of them went to his inheritance to occupy the land. The people served Yahweh during the lifetime of Joshua and of the leaders who outlived him and who had witnessed all the great works of Yahweh for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of Moses, died at the age of 110 years. They buried him at the boundary of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the mountains of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. That whole generation died, and another one came, but they did not know Yahweh or what he had done for Israel. The Israelites treated Yahweh badly, for they served the Baals instead. They abandoned Yahweh, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt, and served other gods, the gods of the neighboring peoples. they bowed before those gods and offended Yahweh. When Yahweh saw that they had abandoned him to serve Baal and Ashtaroth, he became angry with his people and gave them into the hands of plunderers who left them in misery. He himself sold them to their enemies, who completely surrounded the Israelites, so that these Israelites could no longer withstand them. Whenever they felt strong for an offensive, Yahweh would turn against them and send evil upon them, as he had warned them and sworn to do. And this caused much distress and anguish for the Israelites. Yahweh raised up judges or liberators who saved the Israelites from their exploiters. But neither did they obey those judges, for they still prostituted themselves to their gods and worshipped them. They soon left the way of their fathers, who obeyed the commandments of Yahweh. They did not follow the way of their fathers. When Yahweh made a judge appear among his people, Yahweh was with him and saved them from their enemies. That lasted as long as the judge lived, for Yahweh was moved to pity by the lament of his people who were oppressed and persecuted. But when the judge died, they again became worse than their ancestors, worshipping and serving other gods. They would not renounce their pagan practices and stubborn ways. Yahweh was angry and he said, "These people broke the covenant I made with their ancestors, and they refused to obey me. Well now, neither shall I drive out before them any of the nations left when Joshua died. And I shall test the Israelites through those nations. Then I shall know if they will finally follow my ways as their ancestors did." So Yahweh left those nations in their place and did not take the land immediately from them. This was also why he did not give them into the hands of Joshua. Judges chapter 3. These are the nations that Yahweh let live in order to test the Israelites through them. That is to say, all the Israelites who had not known any of the wars in Canaan. He let these people live so that the generation of the children of Israel who had not known war before might learn how to fight. These people were the 5 lords of the Philistines and all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites of Mount Lebanon, from the mountain of Baal Hermon to as far as the entrance of Hamath. They remained to test Israel to see if they would observe the commandments that Yahweh had prescribed to their fathers through Moses. So the Israelites lived in the midst of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. The Israelites married the daughters of these people, gave their own daughters in marriage to the sons of these people, and served their gods. The Israelites treated Yahweh badly. They forgot Yahweh their God and served the Baals and the Ashtaroths. Because of this, the anger of Yahweh burned against Israel, and he left them in the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, to whom they were subject for 8 years. Then the Israelites cried to Yahweh, and he raised up from among them a liberator who saved them, Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of Yahweh was upon him, and he led Israel. When Othniel went to war, Yahweh gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into Othniel's hands. Othniel won over the king, and the land had peace for 40 years. Then Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, so he strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, so he could attack them. That was because they had treated Yahweh badly. Eglon joined the Ammonites and the Amalekites. They set out and marched together, defeating Israel and taking the city of palms. The Israelites became subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. But as they cried to Yahweh, he gave them a liberator, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Gera, from the tribe of Benjamin. The Israelites entrusted a gift to him to bring to Eglon, king of Moab. So Ehud made for himself a two-edged dagger, 1 cubit long, and strapped it on his right thigh under his clothes. He then went to present the gift to Eglon, king of Moab. Eglon was a very fat man. When Ehud finished offering the present, he dismissed the men who had brought all the things. But when he arrived at the place of the idols near Gilgal, he went back to the king and said to Eglon, "I have a secret message for you, O king." Eglon, king of Moab, then declared, "Leave me alone." And so everyone who was present left the room. Then Ehud approached him while the king was seated alone on his private roof chamber where it was cool. Ehud said to him, "Lord, I have a warning from God for you." The king rose from his seat. Then Ehud, with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into the king's belly. The handle even went in with the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for Ehud did not draw the dagger out of his belly. And the dirt came out. Ehud jumped out through the window after having locked the doors of the roof behind him. When he had gone, the servants came and saw that the doors of the upper room were locked. They thought he must be relieving himself in the cool room. They waited for some time, but the doors of the roof room remained closed. Finally, they took the keys and opened the doors. Their lord lay on the floor dead. Ehud has escaped while the servants waited for their king. He had passed through the place of the idols and reached the safe place in Seirah. When he arrived, he heard the trumpet sounded in the mountains of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down from the mountains. He stood before all of them and said, "Follow me, for Yahweh has given the people of Moab, our enemies, into our hands." They went down with him, barred the passages of the Jordan towards Moab, and they let nobody pass. They defeated Moab on that occasion, killing some 10,000, all strong and brave men. Nobody was spared. So on that day, Moab became subject to Israel, and the land remained peaceful for 80 years. Then Shamgar, the son of Anath, came. He killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too saved Israel. Judges chapter 4. After Ehud died, the Israelites again treated Yahweh badly. So he left them in the power of Jabin, king of Canaan. Jabin reigned in Hazor, and the commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagolim. Then the Israelites cried to Yahweh, for Jabin had 900 chariots of war and had kept the Israelites oppressed for 20 years. At that time, Deborah, a prophetess and wife of Lapidoth, became judge. She used to sit under what was called the palm of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel, in the land of Ephraim. There she resolved the complaints that the Israelites presented to her. And she went and called for Barak, the son of Abinoam, who was from the town of Kadesh of Naphtali. She said to him, "This is the order of Yahweh. Go, gather the people on Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun, for I am going to bring Sisera to you at the river Kishon with his chariots and men, and I will give him into your hands." Barak answered her, "If you will go, then I shall go too. But if you do not go, I shall not go." Deborah answered, "I will go with you. But if you do it that way, the honor of victory will not be yours, for Sisera will be killed by a woman." In this way, Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak summoned men from Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 followed him. Deborah also went up with him. When Sisera came to know that Barak had climbed Mount Tabor, he gathered all his chariots, 900 chariots of war in all, and all his men, and they set out from Harosheth Hagolim to the river Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Rise, for this is the day in which Yahweh shall give Sisera into your hands. Today Yahweh goes before you." So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with his 10,000 men. Yahweh made him win over Sisera and his chariots and all his army. Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled, while Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Harosheth Hagolim. All of Sisera's army perished. Nobody was spared. At that moment, Heber the Kenite was encamped by the oak of San-Nanim near Kadesh, after separating from the other Kenite descendants of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law. There Sisera took refuge and came running to the tent of Yael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Peace reigned between the Kenite tribe and the Canaanites of Jabin, king of Hazor. Yael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come this way, my lord, have no fear." Sisera entered, and Yael hid him under a blanket. He asked her for a little water to quench his thirst. The woman opened a skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again with the blanket. And he said to her, "Stand at the entrance, and if anyone comes and asks you, tell him there is no one with you." Sisera was very tired, so he slept. Then the woman took a hammer and a tent peg, went quietly to him, and drove the peg into his temple till it was fixed into the ground. When Barak arrived, Yael came out to meet him and said, "Come in, and I will show you the man you are looking for." He entered and saw Sisera dead with a tent peg through his temple. On that day, Yahweh humbled Jabin before the Israelites. The Israelites did not rest until they destroyed all the Canaanites. Judges chapter 5. On that day, Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang this song. In Israel, the warriors let their hair loose. In Israel, they presented voluntary offerings for the war. Blessed be Yahweh. Listen, O kings, pay attention, O princes. To Yahweh will I sing. To Yahweh, the God of Israel, will I offer praise. When you went forth from Seir, O Yahweh, when you came from the camp of Edom, the earth trembled, the heavens reeled, and the clouds poured down rain. The mountains rocked before Yahweh, the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Yael, caravans ceased, and travelers wandered through the byways. There were no leaders in Israel until I, Deborah, awoke and arose as a mother of Israel. They went after new gods, and war was upon them. There was hardly a shield or a spear for 40,000 men in Israel. My heart is with the leaders of Israel, among the people who came willingly. Blessed be Yahweh, those who go riding on white asses, those who walk by the way. Meditate. Hear the voice of those who divide the plunder near the watering place. They sing the favors God has done to Israel when the people of Yahweh march down to the gates. Wake up, Deborah, wake up. Wake up, wake up and begin to sing. Arise, Barak, and bring your songs, son of Abinoam. Let the survivors of the people rule over their oppressors. May Yahweh be with me, stronger than the valiant. Your roots, O Ephraim, are in Amalek. Your brother Benjamin is behind you among your army. From Machir, the commanders marched down from Zebulun, the leaders bearing the brass staff. The leaders of Issachar are with Deborah. Issachar is with Barak. The people rushed forth, following their footsteps into the plain. There were long walks among the clans of Reuben. Why did you choose to remain in your folds, listening to the flute among the flock? The clans of Reuben could not decide. Galaad remained on the other side of the Jordan. And Dan, why did you remain in your ships? Asher has remained on the seacoast. He is quiet in his sports. Zebulun, in turn, has scorned death. Naphtali went up to the battlefield too. The kings came to fight. The kings of Canaan fought at Tanakh, near the waters of Megiddo, but they got no silver. From the heavens that stars fought. From their orbits they fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon dragged them away. The cold torrent, the torrent Kishon. March on without fear, my soul. Hoofs of horses shake the ground. The galloping of his horses. Cursed be Meroz, said the angel of Yahweh. Cursed be it. Cursed be its inhabitants. For it came not to the aid of Yahweh, not like the heroes. Blessed among women be Yael, wife of Heber the Kenite. Among the women who dwell in tents, blessed may you be. He asked for water, she gave him milk. In the cup of honor, she served him cream. She put her head to the peg, and with her right hand took the hammer of a workman. She struck Sisera, crushed his head, pierced and shattered his temple. He collapsed at her feet, and there he fell and lay still. Sisera's mother looks out of the window, and she cries out behind the lattice. Why is his chariot late in coming? Why is his chariot delayed? The wisest of her women answers and says, surely they are dividing the plunder. One captive, two captives for each warrior. Colored clothes for Sisera as booty. Colored clothes twice adorned with raised embroidery for a scarf. So may all your enemies perish, O Yahweh. But may your friends be like the brilliant sun. And there was peace in the land for 40 years. Judges chapter 6. The Israelites treated Yahweh badly, and Yahweh gave them into the hands of the Midianites for 7 years, and the hand of the Midianites lay heavily on them. Because of Midian, the Israelites made for themselves passage in the mountains, caves and shelters. When the Israelites had sown, Midian would come with Amalek and with the people of the east. They would come up against the Israelites, encamp in the lands of the Israelites, and destroy all the fields as far as the entrance to Gaza. They would leave no provision or sheep or ox or ass, for they would come up like locusts in number, bringing with them their livestock and their tents. They and their camels were many, and they invaded and plundered the land. In this way, Midian subdued Israel and brought upon it so great a misery that the Israelites cried to Yahweh. When the Israelites cried to Yahweh because of Midian, Yahweh sent them a prophet who said to them, "This is the word of Yahweh, the God of Israel. I led you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of slavery. I freed you from the hands of the Egyptians and from all your oppressors. I drove out before you the inhabitants of these lands and gave their lands to you. And I said to you, I am Yahweh your God. Disregard the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell, but you did not listen to me." The angel of Yahweh came and sat under the sacred tree of Ophrah, which belonged to Joab of the family of Abiezer. Gideon, the son of Joash, was threshing the wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. The angel of Yahweh said to him, "Yahweh be with you, valiant warrior." Gideon answered, "Please, my Lord, if Yahweh is with us, why is all this happening to us? Where are the wonders which our fathers recounted to us? Did they not say that Yahweh led them up from Egypt? Why has He abandoned us now and given us into the hands of the Midianites?" Yahweh then turned to him and said, "Go, and with your courage save Israel from the Midianites. It is I who send you." Gideon answered, "Pardon me, Lord, but how can I save Israel? My family is the lowliest in my tribe, and I am the least in the family of my father." Yahweh said to him, "I will be with you, and you shall defeat the people of Midian with one single stroke." Gideon said to him, "Please give me a sign that it is indeed you who speak. Do not leave until I return with an offering and present it to you." Yahweh responded, "I am going to wait for you here." Gideon went and prepared a young goat, took a measure of flour, and baked unleavened bread. He put the broth in the pot and the meat in a basket, and went to present them to the angel under the tree. Then the angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the bread, put them on this rock, and pour the broth over them." Gideon did so. At that moment, the angel of Yahweh extended the staff he was holding and touched the meat and the bread. Suddenly, fire blazed from the rock. The fire consumed the meat and the bread, and the angel of Yahweh disappeared. Gideon realized that he was the angel of Yahweh and said, "Alas, O Lord Yahweh, I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face." But Yahweh said to him, "Peace be with you. Do not fear, for you shall not die." Gideon built an altar to Yahweh in that place and called it Yahweh Peace. To this day it is still in Ophrah of Abiezer. That same night Yahweh said to Gideon, "Take with you 10 of your father's servants and a 7-year-old bull. Destroy your father's altar to Baal and cut the sacred pillar beside it. Then build an altar to Yahweh on this knoll and sacrifice the bull to me, burning it with the wood from the sacred pillar. So Gideon, with the help of his 10 servants, did what Yahweh had commanded. But because he feared his family and the people of the town, he did it by night. On the following day, the townspeople saw the altar of Baal broken into pieces and the sacred pillar cut down. They also saw that a bull had been sacrificed on the new altar. So they asked one another, and as they investigated, found out that it was Gideon who had done it. And they went to Joash and said, "Hand your son over to us, for he must die." He destroyed the altar of Baal and cut down the sacred pillar. But Joash said to the angry crowd, "Are you going to defend Baal and save him? If he is God, let him defend himself when someone destroys his altar." On that day, they gave Gideon the name Jerubbaal, which means, "Let Baal defend himself against Gideon," for Gideon destroyed his altar. All Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east joined forces, crossed the Jordan, and invaded the plains of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of Yahweh clothed Gideon with strength. He blew the trumpet and summoned the men of Abiezer. He sent messengers throughout the whole territory of Manasseh, and they joined him. The people of Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali also went out to meet them. Gideon said to God, "If indeed you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, grant me this favor. I am going to spread this woolen fleece on the threshing ground. If the dew falls only on the fleece, while all the ground remains dry, then I shall know that you are to save Israel by my hand, as you have promised." So it was. Gideon rose at daybreak, squeezed the fleece, and wrung out the dew, filling the cup with water. Gideon again spoke to God and said to him, "Don't be angry with me if I dare to speak to you again. Allow me to make another test with the fleece. Let it be dry only on the fleece, and let dew come on all the ground." That night Yahweh did so. The fleece remained dry, and dew covered all the ground. Judges chapter 7. Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, rose early with all the people who were with him, and they encamped beside the spring of Harod. The Midianite camp was farther north and extended from the hill of Moreh to the plains. Then Yahweh said to Gideon, "There are too many people with you. If I give the Midianites into their hands, the Israelites might think that they won over the Midianites by their own strength. So summon your men and say to them that whoever is afraid may go home." So 22,000 men returned, and only 10,000 remained. Yahweh said to Gideon, "There are still too many people. Take them down to the water, and I myself will test them for you. If I say, 'This one shall go with you,' he will go. And if I say, 'Not this one,' he shall not go." So Gideon brought them down to the water, and Yahweh told them, "Those who lap the water like a dog, you shall place on one side, and those who kneel down to drink, you shall place on the other side." 300 men lapped the water, and the rest knelt down to drink. Then Yahweh said to Gideon, "I will help these 300 men who lapped the water and gave the Midianites into your hands. Let the rest return to their homes." 300 men took the pitchers and the horns, of whom Gideon dismissed. Finally, Gideon and his 300 men faced the Midianites, who were encamped below the valley. That night Yahweh said to him, Rise and go down to the camp, because I have given it into your hands. But if you are afraid to go down alone, set out for the camp with your servant Purah, and listen to what they say there. You shall be strengthened by it, and you shall attack the camp. He then went down with his servant Purah to the outposts of the gods of the camp. Midian, Amalek, and all the people of the east were in the valley, thick as locusts, and their camels were as countless as the sand on the seashore. Gideon approached just as a man was recounting his dream to his comrade. Gideon heard him say, I had a dream. A big loaf of barley bread rolled down into the camp of Midian until it came to a tent, bumped against it, and overturned the tent. His comrade answered him, This cannot mean anything other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joab the Israelite. God has given Midian and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed, returned to the camp of Israel, and said, Arise, for Yahweh has given the camp of Midian into your hands. Gideon divided the 300 men into 3 groups. Then he handed the trumpets to all, and the empty pitchers with lighted torches inside. He said to them, Look at me, and do what I do. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I and those who are with me blow the trumpets, then blow yours all around the camp and shout for Yahweh and for Gideon. With the 100 men with him, Gideon came to the Midianite camp just as the gods were changing shift at the beginning of the midnight watch. Then the Israelites smashed the jars, took the torches in one hand, and blew the trumpets they were holding in the other hand. After blowing the trumpets, the 3 groups shouted, For Yahweh and for Gideon. Everyone stood in his place around the camp, while the Midianites ran, shouting as they fled. As the 300 Israelites went on blowing the trumpets, Yahweh made the Midianites in the camp kill one another. Those who managed to escape went as far as Bethshittah toward Sererah, and as far as the border of Abel Meholah opposite Tabath. Then the Israelites from the tribe of Naphtali, Asher, and the whole of Manasseh came to help Gideon, and they pursued Midian. Gideon also sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim to say, Come down to fight against Midian, and block the passages as far as Beth-barah and along the Jordan. So all the men of Ephraim came out and occupied the shallow waters as far as Beth-barah and along the Jordan. They took the 2 leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, as prisoners. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeeb at the winepress of Zeeb. They pursued Midian and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon at the other side of the Jordan. Judges chapter 8. The people of Ephraim said to Gideon, Why didn't you call us when you went to fight against Midian? They argued with him violently. He said to them, What have I done in comparison with what you have done? Are not the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? Yahweh has given the leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, into your hands. What have I been able to do in comparison with what you have done? After hearing this, their anger lessened. Gideon and his 300 men came to the Jordan and crossed it. They were exhausted and hungry. So he said to the people of Succoth, "Please give loaves of bread to the army that follows me, for they are exhausted and hungry, and I am still pursuing Seba and Salmona, the kings of Midian." But the elders of Succoth answered, "Have you by chance already restrained the hands of Seba and Salmona? Why should we give bread to your army?" Gideon answered them, "Well, when Yahweh has given Seba and Salmona into my hands, I will skin your flesh with the thorns and thistles of the desert." From there he went up to Penuel and made the same request. But they answered him as those of Succoth had. So Gideon said, "When I return victorious, I will tear down this tower." Seba and Salmona were in Karkor with their army of about 15,000 men, all that were left of the people of the east. 120,000 warriors had died. Gideon went up by the road of the nomads, east of Nobah and Yogbeha, and fell upon Seba and Salmona and their army. Seba and Salmona fled. He pursued them, took the two as prisoners, and scattered all their army. After the battle, Gideon, the son of Joash, returned through the slope of Heres. He caught a young man of the people of Succoth and questioned him. The young man wrote down for him the names of the 77 leaders and elders of Succoth. Gideon went to the people of Succoth and said to them, "Here are Seba and Salmona, about whom you mocked me by saying, 'Have you by chance already restrained the hands of Seba and Salmona for us to give bread to your hungry troops?'" So he took the elders of the town and punished the people of Succoth with thorns and thistles of the desert. He tore down the towers of Penuel and killed the inhabitants of the town. Then he said to Seba and Salmona, "What did the men whom you killed at Tabor look like?" They answered, "They looked like you. They looked like sons of kings." Gideon answered, "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As Yahweh lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you." He said to Ether, his eldest son, "Courage, kill them." But the youth did not draw his sword. He did not dare do it, for he was still very young. So Seba and Salmona said, "Rise and kill us yourself, for as the man is, so is the courage." Gideon arose and killed them, and took the ornaments off their camels' necks. The Israelites said to Gideon, "Since you have saved us from the Midianites, you shall be our king, and after you, your son and the descendants of your son." But Gideon answered, "I will not rule over Israel, nor my son, for Yahweh is our king." Gideon added, "I will ask something from you. Let each of you give me an earring from your booty." Gideon said this, for these Midianites wore gold earrings like all the Ishmaelites. They answered him, "That we will gladly do." Then Gideon spread out his cloak, and every Israelite threw in the earring from his booty. The gold earrings reached 1,700 pieces of gold, not counting the brooches, the rings, the expensive garments used by the kings of Midian, and the collars of the camels. With this money, Gideon made an idol and put it in his city of Ophrah. People from all Israel began to go to that place, turning away from Yahweh. That was the trap into which Gideon and his family fell. In spite of this, the Midianites were humbled in such a way that peace reigned in Israel for 40 years during Gideon's lifetime. Gideon returned to Ophrah and remained in his house. He had 70 sons of his blood, for he had many wives. A woman from the city of Shechem also bore him a son, whom he named Abimelech. Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a happy old age, and he was buried in the tomb of Joash his father in Ophrah of Abiezer. After the death of Gideon, the Israelites again prostituted themselves to the Baals and took Baal-berith as God. The Israelites no longer remembered Yahweh, their God, who had freed them from the hands of all the enemies who surrounded them. Neither were they grateful to the family of Jerubbaal Gideon for all the good things he had done to Israel. Judges chapter 9. Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, marched to Shechem, where the brothers of his mother were, and he said to them and to the whole paternal family of his mother, "Please ask this of all the lords of Shechem. Which is better for you, that you be governed by all the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, or by only one man? Remember that I am of the same blood as you are." The brothers of his mother sent this message to all the lords of Shechem. The lords of Shechem took sides with Abimelech, saying, "He is our brother." So they gave him 70 pieces of silver from the temple of Baal-berith, which Abimelech used to hire wicked mercenaries to set out with him. Abimelech went with them to the house of his father in Ophrah, and on one stone killed all his brothers, the 70 sons of Jerubbaal. Only Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was able to escape by hiding himself. Then all the lords of Shechem and the whole council assembled together by the oak at the pillar at Shechem and proclaimed Abimelech. When Jotham was told about this, he went to the top of Mount Gerizim. There he cried out to them, "Listen to me, lords of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once set out to find and anoint a king. They said to the olive tree, 'Be our king.' The olive tree answered, 'Am I going to renounce the oil by which, thanks to me, gods and people are honored to hold sway over the trees?' The tree said to the fig tree, 'Come and reign over us.' The fig tree answered them, 'Am I going to renounce my sweetness and my delicious fruit to hold sway over the trees?' The tree said to the vine, 'Come and reign over us.' The vine answered, 'Am I going to renounce my juice, which cheers gods and people to hold sway over the trees?' Then the tree said to the bramble bush, 'Come, reign over us.' The bramble bush answered the trees, 'If you come in sincerity to anoint me as your king, then come near and take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire break out of the bramble bush to devour even the cedars of Lebanon. And now tell me, have you acted rightly and faithfully in choosing Abimelech king? Have you treated Jerubbaal and his family well and given him what he deserves according to his merits? For my father fought for you, risking his life to free you from the hands of Midian. But now you have risen against the family of my father. You have killed all his 70 sons with one stone, and have declared Abimelech, the son of his slave, as king over the lords of Shechem, because he is your brother. If you have acted rightly and truthfully toward Jerubbaal and his family today, then may Abimelech rejoice in you and you in him. But if not, let fire break forth from Abimelech to devour the lords of Shechem and their council, and let fire break forth from their council to devour Abimelech. Jotham fled to the safety of Beer, where he lived far from his brother Abimelech. Abimelech ruled over Israel for 3 years. But Yahweh sent a spirit of discord between Abimelech and the lords of Shechem, and the lords of Shechem betrayed Abimelech. Yahweh did this so that the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might be avenged. Their blood had to fall back upon their brother Abimelech, who murdered them, and the lords of Shechem, who helped him murder his brothers. To do him harm, the lords of Shechem prepared ambushes against Abimelech on the mountain tops and intimidated everyone who passed by the way. Abimelech was informed of this. Then Gaal, the son of Ebed, came with his brothers, and he won the confidence of the lords of Shechem. One day they went to the vineyards and gathered grapes and trod on them. Then they feasted in the temple of their God. While eating and drinking, they cursed Abimelech. Then Gaal, the son of Ebed, exclaimed, "Who is Abimelech for the Shechemites, that we should serve him? He is only the son of Jerubbaal, and Zebul is but his town captain. Let us serve the people of Hamor, the father of Shechem. Why should we serve Abimelech? If only these people were in my hands, then I would remove Abimelech and say to him, 'Reinforce your army, come out and fight.'" When Zebul, the city governor, was informed of the plan of Gaal, the son of Ebed, he was very angry. He sent messengers to Abimelech in secret to say to him, "See, Gaal, the son of Ebed, has come with his brothers to Shechem, and he is tearing up the city against you. Therefore arise, you and the men you have with you, and lay an ambush in the field. By early morning at sunrise, go and rush upon the city. When Gaal comes out against you with his men, you may do to him whatever you wish." Abimelech and all his troops rose by night, and they laid an ambush against Shechem in 4 groups. When Gaal, the son of Ebed, went out and stood at the entrance of the city, Abimelech and his troops rose from their hiding place. Gaal saw the troops and said to Zebul, "Look, people are coming down from the mountain tops." But Zebul answered him, "It is the shadow of the mountain that you see. You mistake it for men." Gaal said again, "Look, people are coming down from the center of the land, and another group is coming from the diviner's oak." Zebul then said, "Did you not say, 'Who is Abimelech, that we should serve him?' Are not these men those whom you despised? Go now and fight them." Gaal went out and led the people of Shechem in fighting Abimelech. Abimelech pursued Gaal, who fled, and many fell dead before reaching the gates. Abimelech returned to Arumah, and Zebul drove out Gaal and his brothers, and did not let them live in Shechem. The following day, people went out into the fields. Abimelech was informed about this. So he called his troops, divided them into 3 groups, and laid an ambush in the fields. When he saw the people coming out of the city, he rose against them and killed them. Abimelech and the group with him attacked and took possession of the entrance to the city gates. Other groups rushed upon those who were in the fields. Throughout that day, Abimelech attacked the city. He took it and killed all its inhabitants. Then he destroyed the city and sprinkled salt over it. When the inhabitants of the tower of Shechem heard this, they went to the underground room of the temple of El-Berith. Abimelech was told that all the inhabitants of the tower of Shechem were together. So he went up to Mount Salmon with all his troops. Taking an axe, he cut down a branch of a tree, lifted it up and bore it on his shoulders. He then said to the troops with him, "You have seen what I have done, so do the same." So all his men cut the branches, then followed Abimelech. They piled the branches on top of the underground room and set them on fire over the people inside. So all the inhabitants of the tower of Shechem, about 1,000 men and women, died. Abimelech went against Thebez, besieged it, and took it. But inside the city was a strong tower in which all the men and women, all the inhabitants of the city, sought refuge. They locked it from within and went up to the roof of the tower. Abimelech came to the tower to attack them. He approached the door, intending to set it on fire. But a woman threw a millstone upon his head and shattered his skull. He immediately called out to his young armor-bearer and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest they say of me, 'A woman killed him.'" So his armor-bearer thrust him through, and he died. When the people of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, everyone returned to his home. In this way, God repaid Abimelech for the evil he had done to his father when he murdered his 70 brothers. He also made the people of Shechem pay for all their wickedness. So the curses of Jotham, son of Jerubbaal, was fulfilled. Judges chapter 10. After Abimelech, Tola, the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, appeared to save Israel. He was from the tribe of Issachar and lived at Shamir in the mountains of Ephraim. He was judge of Israel for 23 years, and when he died, he was buried in Shamir. After him rose Jair of Gilead, who was judge of Israel for 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 asses and had 30 cities, which are still called the villages of Jair to this day in the land of Gilead. When Jair died, he was buried in Kamon. The Israelites again treated Yahweh badly. They served the Baals and the Ashtaroth, the gods of Aram and Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. They abandoned Yahweh and no longer served him. The anger of Yahweh burned against Israel, so he gave them into the hands of the Philistines and the Ammonites. For 18 years, all the Israelites living on the other side of the Jordan in the Amorite land of Gilead were disturbed and oppressed. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to attack Judah, Benjamin, and the people of Ephraim. Israel was in great distress. In those years, the Israelites called out to Yahweh, saying, "We have sinned against you, for we have abandoned Yahweh our God to serve the Baals." Yahweh said to the Israelites, "When the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Sidonians, Amalek and Midian oppressed you, and you cried out to me, did I not save you from their hands? But in spite of this, you have abandoned me and served other gods. So I will not save you again. Go and cry out to the gods you have chosen. See if they will save you in the time of your distress." The Israelites answered Yahweh, "We have sinned. Do to us whatever you wish, but save us today." Then they put away the strange gods and served Yahweh, and he could no longer endure the suffering of Israel. The Ammonites assembled and went to encamp in Gilead. The Israelites also assembled, and they encamped at Mizpah. There the people and the leaders of Gilead asked one another, "Who will lead us all to fight against the Ammonites? Whoever he is, we shall make him head of all the inhabitants of Gilead." Judges chapter 11. Jephthah the Gileadite was a valiant warrior. His mother was a prostitute, and his father was Gilead. But Gilead's wife also bore him sons, and when they grew up, they drove Jephthah out, saying, "You shall not share or inherit anything in the household of our father, for you are the son of another woman." Jephthah fled from his brothers and went to the region of Tob. There he joined a band of mercenaries who made their raids with him. The time came when the Ammonites declared war on Israel. So the elders of Gilead went to Jephthah in the land of Tob and said to him, "Come and lead our men in fighting the Ammonites." Jephthah answered the elders of Gilead, "Didn't you drive me out of my father's house because you hated me? Why do you come to me now in your distress?" The elders answered him, "We come asking you to join us in fighting the Ammonites. We want you to be head of the whole of Gilead." Jephthah answered them, "If you ask me to return to fight the Ammonites, and Yahweh grants me victory, I will be your head." And they said to him, "May Yahweh listen to us. Woe to us if we do not carry out what we have just said." So Jephthah returned with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him their head and general, and Jephthah repeated all his conditions before Yahweh in Mizpah. Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites to say to him, "What happened between us that you come and attack me in my own country?" The king answered the messengers, "When Israel went up out of Egypt, they seized my country from the Arnon to the Yabbok and to the Jordan, so give it back willingly." Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites, saying, "This is what Jephthah says, Israel has not seized the land of the Ammonites. When they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the desert to the Sea of Reeds and came to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom and said to him, 'Let us pass through your country.' But the king of Edom did not listen. They also sent to the king of Moab, and he too refused. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then journeying through the desert, they went around the country of Edom and Moab, and came to the east of the land of Moab. They encamped on the other side of the Arnon, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, and said to him, "Let us pass through your country and go to our place." But Sihon did not trust Israel enough to let them pass through. He gathered all his men and encamped at Jahaz and attacked Israel. Yahweh, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hands of Israel. Israel defeated them and conquered all the land of the Amorites who lived there. So they conquered the whole territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to the Yabok and from the desert to the Jordan. Since Yahweh, the God of Israel, has taken this land from the Amorites for his people Israel, can you now take it away from us? Do you not hold all that your God, Chemosh, has given you? In the same way, we hold all that Yahweh our God has given us. Will you do better than Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab? Was he able to attack Israel? For 300 years, Israel has lived in Heshbon and the cities that depend on it. They have also lived in Aroer and in its villages and in all the cities on both sides of the Jordan. Why don't you recover these within that time? I have not offended you, but you are treating me badly by attacking me. Let Yahweh the judge decide today between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon. But the king of the Ammonites did not pay attention to Jephthah's message. The Spirit of Yahweh came upon Jephthah. He went through Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and then entered the territory of the Ammonites. Jephthah made a vow to Yahweh, "If you make me victorious, I shall sacrifice to you whoever first comes out of my house to meet me when I return from battle. He shall be for Yahweh, and I shall offer him up through the fire." Jephthah crossed the territory of the Ammonites to fight against them, and Yahweh gave him victory. He pursued them from the city of Aroer to the entrance of Minnith and Abel-keramim, seizing 20 towns. So he defeated the Ammonites. When Jephthah returned home to Mizpah, his daughter came out to meet him. She was so happy to see her father that she danced to the sound of her tambourine. She was an only child. Besides her, he had no other daughter or son. When Jephthah saw her, he tore his clothes and cried out, "My daughter, you have shattered me. You have brought me misfortune. For I have made a foolish vow to Yahweh, and now I cannot take it back." She answered him, "Father, even if you have made such a foolish vow, you have to do to me just as you promised, for Yahweh has avenged you and crushed your enemies. I only beg of you to give me 2 months to live with my companions in the mountains. There I shall lament because I will never marry." Jephthah said to her, "Go then." And he sent her away for 2 months. She and her companions went to the mountains and wept because she would never marry. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, and he fulfilled the vow he had made. The young girl had never known a man. From this comes the Israelite custom that the daughters of Israel go out for 4 days annually to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. Judges chapter 12. The men of Ephraim gathered, crossed the Jordan northward, and said to Jephthah, "Why did you go and attack the Ammonites without asking us to march with you? For this we shall burn you inside your house." Jephthah answered them, "My people and I had a great struggle with the Ammonites. I asked help from you, but you did not save me from their hands. When I saw that no one had come to help me, I risked my own life and marched against the Ammonites, and Yahweh gave them into my hands. Why then have you come up today to fight me?" Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and attacked Ephraim. The Gileadites defeated the Ephraimites, who told them, "You Gileadites are fugitives who crossed from Ephraim and Manasseh." Gilead seized the shallow waters of the Jordans and blocked the way. Whenever a fugitive from Ephraim said, "Let me pass," the men of Gilead would ask him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he responded no, they would add, "Then they Shibboleth." But then he would say Sibboleth, for an Ephraimite could not pronounce it correctly. So they would seize him and cut his throat by the shallow waters of the Jordan. 42,000 men from Ephraim perished at that time. Jephthah was judge in Israel for 6 years. Then he died and was buried in his city, Mizpah of Gilead. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem was judge in Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. His 30 daughters were given in marriage outside his clan, but for his sons he brought in 30 women. He was judge in Israel for 7 years. When Ibzan died, he was buried in Bethlehem. After him, Elon the Zebulunite became judge in Israel. He governed Israel for 10 years. Then he died and was buried in Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon the son of Hillel of Pirathon was judge in Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 asses. He was judge in Israel for 8 years. Then he died and was buried in Pirathon in the mountains of Ephraim, in the mountain of the Amorites. Judges chapter 13. The Israelites again treated Yahweh badly, so he gave them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a man of Zorah of the tribe of Dan called Manoah. His wife could not bear children. The angel of Yahweh appeared to this woman and said to her, "You have not borne children and have not given birth, but see, you are to conceive and give birth to a son. Because of this, take care not to take wine or any alcoholic drink, not to eat unclean foods from now on. For you shall bear a son, who shall be a Nazarite of Yahweh from the womb of his mother. Never shall his hair be cut, for he is consecrated to Yahweh. He shall begin the liberation of the Israelites from the Philistine oppression." The woman went to her husband and told him, "A messenger of God, who bore the majesty of an angel, spoke to me. I did not ask him where he came from, nor did he tell me his name. But he said to me, 'You are to conceive and give birth to a son. Henceforth you shall not drink wine or fermented drinks, nor eat anything unclean. For your son shall be a Nazarite of God from the womb of his mother until the day of his death.' Manoah called upon Yahweh and said, "I pray you, Lord, that the man of God whom you have sent may come again to us and teach us how to bring up the boy who is to be born." Yahweh listened to Manoah, and the angel of Yahweh came to the woman as she was seated in the fields. Again Manoah, her husband, was not with her when the angel came. The woman immediately ran to inform her husband and told him, "Look, the man who came to me the other day is here again." Manoah rose and followed his wife. He came to the man and said to him, "Are you the man who has spoken to this woman?" He answered, "I am." Manoah said to him, "When your word is fulfilled, what rule and direction shall the boy follow?" The angel of Yahweh answered Manoah, "She must abstain from all I have indicated to this woman. She shall not taste anything that comes from the grape, nor drink wine or fermented drinks, nor eat anything unclean, and she shall observe everything I have commanded her." Manoah then said to the angel of Yahweh, "Permit us to detain you and prepare a young goat for you." Manoah did not know that the man was the angel of Yahweh. But he said to Manoah, "Even if I did stay, I would not taste your food. But if you want to offer a burnt offering, offer it to Yahweh." So Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, "What is your name, that we may honor you when your word comes true?" The angel of Yahweh answered him, "Why do you ask my name? It is wonderful." Manoah then took the young goat and the cereal offering and offered it upon the rock as a holocaust to Yahweh, who does wonderful things. And something happened as Manoah and his wife looked on. A fire broke forth from the altar, rising toward heaven, and the angel of Yahweh ascended in the flame. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell face downwards on the ground. When the angel of Yahweh vanished from the sight of Manoah and his wife, Manoah knew then that he was the angel of Yahweh. And he said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." She answered him, "If Yahweh had wanted to kill us, He would not have accepted the holocaust or the offering from our hand. He would not have made all these things happen or said what we have just heard." The woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. The boy grew and Yahweh blessed him. Then the Spirit of Yahweh began to move him when he was in Mahane Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. Judges chapter 14. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a Philistine woman. He came up and said to his father and mother, "I have seen a Philistine woman, Timnah. Get her for me, that she may be my wife." His father and mother said to him, "Is there no one among the daughters of your brothers and among all your people, that you should go and take a wife from among those uncircumcised Philistines?" Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, for I like her." His father and mother did not know that this came from Yahweh, who was seeking a quarrel with the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Samson then went down to Timnah, and when he reached the vineyards at Timnah, a young lion came up roaring toward him. The Spirit of Yahweh then seized Samson. With bare hands he tore the lion to pieces, as he would have done with a young goat. But he told neither his father or mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked to the woman who pleased him. After some time he returned to take her. He went out of his way to look at the carcass of the lion. He found a swarm of bees and honey in the lion's carcass. Samson scraped the honey into his hands and ate it as he walked. When he reached his parents, he gave them honey, and they ate it too. But he did not tell them he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Then Samson's father went down to the woman, and Samson offered a banquet, as was the custom among the young. When he appeared, the Philistines assigned 30 men to go with him as his wedding companions. Samson said to them, I am going to give you a riddle. If you can give me the right solution within 7 days of the feast, I shall give you 30 tunics and 30 linen garments. But if you can't tell me the solution, you will give me 30 tunics and 30 linen garments. They answered, Tell your riddle, we are listening. He said to them, From him who eats came what is eaten, and from the strong sweetness came. After 3 days they had not guessed the riddle. So on the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, Convince your husband to explain the riddle to us, or we will burn you and your father's family. Did you invite us to rob us? Samson's wife began to weep, and she threw herself upon her husband, saying, You do not like me or love me any more. You have given a riddle to the young men of my people, but you have not explained it to me. He said to her, I have not explained it even to my parents. Why should I explain it to you? She cried before him for 7 days while the feast lasted. On the 7th day, he explained it to her, for he was bored with her crying. She then related it to her countrymen. On the 7th day, before the married couple were to enter the wedding chamber, the people of the city said to Samson, What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? He said to them, If you have not plowed with my young cow, you would not have guessed my riddle. Then the Spirit of Yahweh seized him. He went down to Ashkelon, killed 30 men, took their plunder, and gave the linen garments to those who had guessed the riddle. Then in great anger he came up to his father's house. So Samson's wife was given to one of his wedding companions. Judges chapter 15. After some time, during wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife, bringing a young goat with him, and he said, I want to be with my wife in our room. But her father would not let him in, saying, I thought that you did not like her anymore, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister still better? Why don't you take her instead? Samson replied, This time I owe nothing to the Philistines, even if I do them harm. Samson went out and caught 300 foxes, took some torches and tied the animals tail to tail. He then placed a torch in between every 2 tails, set fire to the torches, and turned the foxes loose in the grain fields of the Philistines. In this way he burned the sheaves and the standing grain, together with the vineyards and olive groves. The Philistines asked, Who did this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the man from Timnah, because this man took his wife and gave her to his companion. So they went up and burned her and her family. Samson said to them, Since you did this, I will not rest until I have had my revenge on you. So he caused a great havoc upon them. Then he went down to live in a cave in the rock of Etam. The Philistines went up to the mountains of Judah and raided Lehi. The men of Judah asked them, Why have you come to attack us? They answered, We have come to capture Samson and do to him what he did to us. 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cave at the rock of Etam and said to Samson, Do you not know that the Philistines lord it over us? Now what have you done to us? He answered, What they did to me, I have done to them. They said to him, We have come down to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. Samson said to them, Swear to me that you will not kill me. They answered, No, we only want to tie you up and hand you over to them, but we will not kill you. They bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rocks. When they arrived in Lehi, the Philistines ran to him with shouts of victory. But the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Samson. The ropes that bound him became like linen flax burned in the fire, and the knots were loosened from his arms. He found a fresh jawbone of an ass, grabbed it, and with it killed 1,000 men. Samson then said, With the jawbone of an ass I dealt them a mighty blow. With the jawbone of an ass I beat 1,000 men. When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone, and that is why the place was called Ramath Lehi. Then he became terribly thirsty and called out to Yahweh, saying, You have given your servant this great victory. Now am I to die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? So Yahweh opened a hollow in the ground at Lehi, and water gushed forth from it. Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. For this, the name En-Hakkore was given to the fountain, which is still in Lehi to this day. Samson became judge of Israel for 20 years during the time of Philistines. Judges chapter 16. When Samson went to Gaza, he saw a prostitute there and entered the place where she lived. When the men of Gaza were notified that Samson had come, they made the rounds and lay in wait for him at the city gates. They kept quiet all night, thinking, We will wait for him until dawn, and then we will kill him. But Samson slept until midnight. At midnight he arose and took hold of the door panels of the city gates, together with the doorcase, and pulled them up with the bar. He put them upon his shoulders and carried them to the hilltop opposite Hebron. After this, Samson fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek. She was called Delilah. The Philistine chiefs said to this woman, Charm him and find out where he gets such strength, and how we can defeat and tie him up. Each of us shall give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah asked Samson, Tell me please, where do you get such strength, and how can others tie you up to subdue you? Samson answered her, If they bind me with 7 new and moist bowstrings, then I shall lose my strength and be as any other man. The Philistine chiefs sent 7 new bowstrings that had not been dried to Delilah, and she tied Samson with them. With the men hidden in her dwelling, she shouted, Samson, here come the Philistines. Samson broke the bowstrings as if they were burned flax. So they did not find out where his great strength came from. Then Delilah said to Samson, You made a fool of me, and you lied to me. Tell me, how can they subdue you? Samson answered her, If they bind me this time with 7 newly braided ropes which have never been used, then I shall lose my strength and be like any other man. So Delilah bound him with 7 newly braided ropes. But when she shouted, Here come the Philistines, he again snapped the rope round his arms like thread. So Delilah said to him, "How long will you deceive me and lie to me? Tell me how they can subdue you." He answered her, "If you braid the 7 locks of my hair in the warp of the loom and tighten it with a pin, then I shall lose my strength." She lulled him to sleep and then braided the 7 locks of his hair in the warp of the loom and tightened it with a pin. Then she cried, "Here come the Philistines." Samson woke up and pulled the warp with the locks of his hair. And so Delilah did not find out where his great strength came from. Then Delilah said to him, "You say that you love me, but your heart is not with me. 3 times you have deceived me, and have not told me from whence your great strength comes." And as Delilah insisted and bothered him day after day with her questions, the time came when Samson felt he would die in disgust. So he told her the truth. "Never has my hair been cut, for I am a Nazarite, consecrated to God from the womb of my mother. If my hair is cut, then I shall lose my strength and be like any other man." Delilah understood that he had told her the truth this time. So she called the Philistine chiefs and said, "Come, because Samson has revealed his secret to me." They took the money and came to her. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep upon her knees and called a man to cut the 7 locks of his hair, and she could immediately subdue him, for his strength had left him. When Delilah shouted, "Samson, the Philistines," he awoke and thought that he could still save himself as on other occasions. But he did not know that Yahweh was no longer with him. So the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and brought him to Gaza. There they bound him with 2 bronze chains and made him turn the mill in the prison. The hair on Samson's head, however, began to grow as soon as it was cut. The Philistine chiefs assembled to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon and had a great feast, saying, "Our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands." As they were very happy, they said, "Bring out Samson, that he may amuse us." They brought him out of the prison, and he amused them. Then they had him placed between the columns, and on seeing him, the people praised their God, saying, "Our God has put our enemy into our hands, Samson, who has destroyed our country and killed our men." Samson then said to the boy who held him by the hand, "Lead me where I can touch the pillars on which this house rests, so that I may lean on them." The house was full of men and women. All the Philistine chiefs were also there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women, watching Samson for amusement. Samson called on Yahweh and exclaimed, "Lord Yahweh, please remember me and restore my strength only this once, so that I may avenge myself against the Philistines for my eyes." Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, leaned on them with his right arm on one pillar and his left on the other, and cried out, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the chiefs and the people gathered there. Those who joined him in his own death were more than those he had killed during his lifetime. His brothers and the whole family of his father went down to get him. They buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. He had judged Israel for 20 years.